I was just like, I need to get back into engineering. And I also really felt like with sales, there was kind of I think all employment kind of has a glass ceiling, but I just, at the end of the day, I wasn't happy. So, and the big challenge, like you said, is being out of school for 14 years and not really looking at this stuff.
Right.
But really, I pretty much exclusively used your material and then the practice.
Hi, Andrew. How's it going?
Hey, Wasim, doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. So, Andrew, thanks a lot for taking time for this interview. Really appreciate it. And many, many congratulations on passing the FE exam. I was just joking before our call, right? Before we started the call, you got the trophy for passing FE, right?
Yeah, that's what it's for.
Yeah. Well, it was a big achievement.
Got this, sir. I don't know if you can see it, but the
cool. That's fine.
Here, yeah.
Thank you. So you got the EID certificate, you've got all the documentation in order and everything, and that's really impressive. And your story is pretty impressive, Andrew, because, and I'll let you walk through it, but you've been out of school for like 10, 12 years, right? And diving into engineering after such a huge gap. So walk me through what motivated you to take this exam and the challenges you faced and everything.
So basically, after graduating, 22 years old, I guess realistically, I wasn't very happy with my social skills. So I felt like I needed to go into sales to maximize a weakness per se. And I did that. I worked in technical sales for 10 years, had a pretty good level of success there, but it's not really my temperament. It's not, I wasn't happy. And one of the things I found is that working in sales, for me personally, kind of negatively affected my personal life, right? Because if you're constantly talking with people and selling to people and expending all of your, because I'm an introvert, and a lot of people don't believe me when I say that, but I actually am. So to go out and give all these presentations, especially if I'm not really that connected with the people, it takes a lot of energy out of me. So I was just like, I need to get back into engineering. And I also really felt like with sales, there was kind of I think all employment kind of has a glass ceiling, but I just, at the end of the day, I wasn't happy. So, and the big challenge, like you said, is being out of school for 14 years and not really looking at this stuff.
Right.
But really, I pretty much exclusively used your material and then the practice. I only did the first half of the practice exam from the NCEES, the official one.
Yeah, the sample exam. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So essentially, you wanted to make a move from sales to technical side of things, and I can relate to that because by default, I'm also an introvert. But I had to work on my skills. I joined Toastmasters, public speaking, and this and that about 10 years ago, and then I realized that. I think the best place to be within engineering is where you are not necessarily like a people's person, but you actually have a solid foundation of technical skills and you can communicate. Okay. And the different forms of communication, writing skills, reading skills, being able to present your idea across. So I think what you've gone through in your previous life is definitely going to help you become a stellar engineer in your future career. Just balance it out with sound technical skills. And a lot of engineers actually do end up moving into management roles because engineering is about problem solving, right? In day-to-day business activities. And you can look around even in non-engineering fields. There are tons and tons of companies out there, Fortune 500 companies. In fact, I was reading this article. I know we are sort of digressing a little bit, but I was reading this article somewhere, and my own personal observation is that CEOs of a lot of companies are actually engineers. Okay, and the reason for that is just because problem solving is one of the skills, analytical skills that come default, right, as part of the engineering package. So it makes it so if you can combine that with interpersonal skills, that's a great place to be. So, but making that transition over is actually quite challenging, Andrew. So what you did from sales to technical, that, or like from, if you can call it like a people-facing job to a technical type of role, that transition is not that easy. I've seen so many people go from technical side of things to management and sales. That's a little bit easier, but that's really impressive. Okay, now in terms of your exam preparation game plan, let me know when you seriously got started with your FE exam preparation, FE electrical exam preparation, how long it took. You mentioned the resources you use my on-demand course and my study guide, I believe, and the NCS sample exam as well. So when did you really get started?
So for me, I mean, I took probably about total 8 months total. There was some breaks in there. But and a lot of that was just because it's been so long since I even looked at a lot of the material. So it was really just going through your lectures and watching all those to get familiar. And then really for really serious studying was probably about a month before the exam. Once we spoke, we talked about it and you said, hey, you really need to schedule that. And then I looked and there was only one day that I could even take it. And the next, it was like if you didn't tell me that, I probably wouldn't have even been able to take the exam because there was only one day at a reasonable time. I looked on their site and there was I could have signed up to take the exam in a day or two. I was like, well, that's not enough time. And then it was 4 months later was after that. So yeah, that was a big deal. You telling me to do that. And then once I did that, that's when I really started going, at it very, very seriously, trying to take 4 hours a day. Every day, and honestly, for me, that was almost like burnout personally. Because for me, when I say 4 hours, that's 4 hours, not 4 hours an hour. I was daydreaming. It's 4 hours nonstop.
Right.
But yeah, just staying consistent, and then I think I answered your question.
Yeah. So 1 hour, 1 month of intense studying. And it was on your mind essentially for almost 8 months type of thing, right? So most of that progress was made essentially after our Zoom call because you enrolled in the course and I believe your access expired and then you re-enrolled in the course and I'm like, Andrew, let's have a chat, before we get this thing started again. This time, let's make it happen. Now, to my surprise, Andrew, on my end, it actually took me by surprise that you actually went in and took the exam in such a short period of time. Do you remember, I think we discussed probably 2 month, 3 month exam preparation timeline and you squeezed it down to in just 4 weeks in a month. Is that right?
Yeah, it was under a month. I mean, it was under a month of when it was really serious. I mean, I was serious the whole time. Don't get me wrong. I mean, even when I was going through the lectures the first time, I was often, pausing them, doing all the questions, kind of like you said, but really going in and grinding and taking the exams and really, really practicing, with your practice exams, they were really good. It was a similar format, you know.
Good. And you also use a study guide, right, Andrew?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
You didn't fully utilize it. You relied primarily on the course.
Yeah, what ended up happening with the study guide is one of the problems I ran into is even during that 1 month of super serious studying, I was being too detailed. I was being too in depth with everything. And it eventually got to the point where it was I had a week left before the exam. And I was like, I just need to start doing the practice exams.
Right.
So that's what I started focusing on. And I just was kind of running out of time. So I just focused on that. And yeah.
Good. So in terms of when you were going through the 17 sections, which topics did you find most challenging and how you dealt with them during your exam preparation?
So at the end, I spent a lot of time focusing on, I actually near the end kind of started approaching it so any of the transforms, the Fourier transforms, the Z transforms, going into the exam, I couldn't answer those questions. And it was really, I don't think it was an issue so much of your content or training. It was just time where I was too focused on all these other sections. And I probably looked at the Z transforms 4 months earlier or something like that. So really what I did is try to focus on the stuff that I could understand and get right, and just minimize the stuff that I had to guess on. And looking at the exam, spreadsheet of what. Let me see if I have it.
Yeah, the specification.
Yeah, the specific. I actually kept I also created a little binder to study out of too. So when I got questions wrong on your practice exams, I would, print those ones out and like really dive into the stuff I got wrong. And then I could flip through my binder and look at it. But even just looking at the sections, being like, okay, for your transforms, okay, there's 2 or 3 questions out of, 110 I might struggle with, but just try to move on and really dive into the stuff that I could get right.
But you still didn't completely skip any of the topics that you're finding challenging, right? You still sort of made an effort that, okay, this is where Z transform or Fourier transform is in the handbook. These are a couple of practice problems from the course that I've tried and a couple of problems that I've looked at from the study guide, or you completely skip them?
I mean, I didn't completely skip them, but near the end, I basically started, what I would start doing is if there was stuff and I did not understand how the answer was derived, I started taking those questions and putting them in a separate pile. And I did try to take the time to drill into everything I didn't understand. And once again, I think no matter who you are going into this exam, you're going to have weaknesses. There's just too much stuff. So it's like,
exactly.
And I found out as going through it, Fourier transforms, a few other things I struggled with, but as I put those problems aside, there really wasn't that many. There was maybe 10 questions out of year 2 practice exams I didn't know how to do. So that's 5 questions out of 110. So
right.
I'm just trying not to worry about those ones so much.
No, that's really smart, and that is very strategic approach, because I 100% agree, you, me included. I don't think there's anybody who can walk into this exam and claim that, you mastered every single thing, because it's so broad that something can definitely be thrown at you that you won't be able to handle. So knowing your strengths and weaknesses, hopefully trying to bring your weaknesses up to a point where they don't become, fatal errors. That's the goal, right? I call it damage control, right? You shouldn't end up with multiple zeros on your diagnostics, right? If you're just doing a little bit of damage control, that's more than enough. Tell me a little bit about time management, Andrew. Did you feel pressed for time during the exam? Any tips you'd like to share?
I actually kind of did the opposite of what a lot of people recommended. I spent more time on the first half of the exam, and I probably spent about 60% of the time on the first half, just because. And I also, when I reviewed questions, I wanted to spend time answering questions I knew the answer to. And once again, going into that second half where there was some sections like the electronic stuff I wasn't very strong on, and I think some of the communication stuff. Once again, still try to study it, but if I saw a question and I didn't know the answer for it, just guess, flag it, and move on. And really try to focus on getting the questions that you can get right. That's what I did.
Right.
And I really did spend a lot of time reviewing that first, set of questions. And then even so, once I got the second half done, I probably still had about maybe 10, 15 minutes to review some of the second half. And once again, I kind of went in there and looked at it and said, okay, can I figure this one out in 2, 3, extra minutes, rather than investing a bunch of time on a question where if you don't know it and you're going to end up guessing anyway, just make your guess and move on,
Right. So one of the things I'm observing, Andrew, with your approach, which is actually quite smart, is that you were very, very aware of your own strengths and weaknesses, your own exam taking style, and things that would work for you, things that wouldn't work for you. So you had a very clear mind going into the exam. You were not just simply buying into the idea that, it's 50-50 spent between the first half, second half, or maybe because the second half is more difficult, you should allocate more time for the second half. You really wanted to capitalize, and you did, obviously, capitalize on the first half because you could score more points in the first half. And then the second half was essentially, basically if you can tackle it, you can tackle it. If not, it's not a big deal. So that's very impressive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, most and kind of you asked about like I didn't really skip any sections altogether, but say like electronics or communications, if you had the basic stuff, I would get that right. But there, some of those questions they can get pretty in depth with a lot of steps and really, they can make them hard. And those ones, kind of move on. But yeah, self-awareness, knowing what you know and what you don't know, and just really looking at it holistically, and saying, there's all these different sections, and not focusing or panicking on the stuff I didn't understand or that I struggled with. And just like I said before, and you agreed, everyone's going to have weaknesses going into it.
Exactly. All right, that's great. So Andrew, how is your EIT certificate, the nice shiny certificate that you just got, is helping you with your career developments? And you mentioned that you've been getting some interviews, in fact, preparing for one tomorrow. So how has that helped you so far?
Well, it's early, right? So I don't, I'm still looking for work, but that's fine. Interestingly enough, the one job that I really, once again, I'm very, this is a very serious and deliberate change for me, right? Going in and taking this exam. And I think employers are going to recognize and see that because it does take a lot of work. And honestly, the one job that I was really interested in, they responded the same day that I sent the application and said they wanted to interview me. Nice. So that's happening tomorrow, and we'll knock on wood here.
Yeah, good luck. I'm sure you'll do well. If not that, then maybe something even better, right? So you have done whatever is in your control. And you were mentioning that you have some colleagues, from friends who graduated with you, who are probably working in the technical field, and they still haven't had their FEIT. I mean, they have the technical knowledge and the experience, but with you having the EIT certificate, it's going to help you also stand out from the rest of the crowd. So that's a big plus.
Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations once again, Andrew, and best of luck with your future endeavors. And again, thanks a lot for your time, and really appreciate you. Well, it's very impressive. I think there are a lot of lessons that viewers can draw from your story. And I think that the single-mindedness and, realizing that this is something you need to get done and putting in all the effort and time into it, and then self-awareness. I think that's one thing if students can take away from it is that, one size does not fit all. So you got to really understand what your strengths and weaknesses are and come up with a strategy that really fits you. There's some best practices in terms of time management, knowing your calculator, knowing the handbook, making sure you understand the theory and do enough practice. Those are the big general themes, but then really having a plan as to how you're going to tackle it. I think there's a lot to learn from you.
Yeah, it's a lot of strategy too. And like you said, time management, taking that test, it's a long test.
Probably the longest that you've taken so far, right?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully once you get a little bit of experience and get the job, I'd like to see you in my PE Power course. That's even a longer exam. That's an 8-hour long exam.
Oh, I can't. Well, you know what? I'll have more. I'm looking forward to taking that exam a little bit more than this one, because this was more under duress. You know what I mean? Like I needed to make a career change. It was something that I knew for my own happiness and well-being I had to do, and I had to take this exam and I had to pass it. Now, I'm going to get an engineering job, but I'm going to need 4 years of experience before I can get the license either way. So I'll probably start getting some books and just kind of start reading them very soon, but more casually. And then once it gets close to the time, I'll definitely look into your course 100%, because it was super helpful. I wouldn't have been able to pass this without it. No way. And your competitors were like way more expensive. And I remember when I was looking at all the different products, I was like, they were like 3-4 times as much, but they didn't tell me even what I was getting. It was just like, we're so awesome. But with yours, you actually had samples, like sample lectures. You actually had everything listed, and I could see that you were actually covering all the topics. And that's why I went with you, and I'm glad I did. Worked out. It was stressful.
No, it's a
But
job well
yeah,
done, and all the credit goes to you for putting the time and effort. You know, you can be using the best resources, you can be having the best plan, but at the end of the day, a lot of things in life fail in execution. So you did the due work and put in the time and effort and made it happen. So congratulations. Take care.
awesome. Thank you.